Hello, dear students. Welcome to our literature session. Today we are going to begin a new selection, which is What to the Slave is the 4th of July, a speech given by one of the most important people in the USA, in the history of the USA, Frederick Douglass. Let's look at the selection itself here, Frederick Douglass, and we have here some background information about him. Frederick Douglass was born in 1818 and died in 1895. He was born in Maryland and spent his first 21 years in slavery. So, the first 21 years in his life, he was a slave. After his escape, the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society hired him as a lecturer. His book, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, which was published in 1845, brought him international fame. In this book, he spoke about a lot of stories that happened to him while he was a slave. After that, friends raised money to buy his freedom, allowing him to fully pursue his career as a reformer. They wanted him to continue his career as a reformer. He advised President Lincoln during the Civil War. He was a consultant to President Lincoln in the Civil War. And in 1852, he spoke at a celebration of the Declaration of Independence. Let's have a look at the title. What to the Slave is the 4th of July? Of course, this is a rhetorical question. And rhetorical questions are questions that don't need answers. They are used for humiliating, for mocking, like here. What to the slave is the 4th of July? He objects to being invited to the celebrations of the 4th of July, which represents the Independence Day. So, what to the slave is the 4th of July? What does the 4th of July represent to the slave? How can a slave celebrate the independence of the country? Independence means freedom. This idea can be clear in the first 7 or 8 lines here. He began his speech by saying what? Fellow citizens, pardon me, and allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? Why was I invited to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? And in this question, there is an important point. He said what? What have I, or those I represent? It means that he represents a certain division of people. What have I, or those I represent, he means the slaves, of course, to do with your national independence. He doesn't say with our national independence. He said with your national independence, which means that there was a division in society. He uses we and you. Okay? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Do we feel that independence? Do we get the benefit of that independence? These are very important lines which can help us understand what he was speaking about. Here we have a short summary to give you an idea about what Frederick Douglass wanted to say in his speech. Frederick Douglass begins his speech by employing some humility. So he was mocking the Independence Day. He said that it would take a braver man than him to give this oration without expressing nervousness. He said that he must be nervous while he was speaking about that topic. Here, he sets up the audience for his condemnation, that is to come by putting them at a temporary ease. Douglas then briefly mentions why he was called upon to make this speech. He continues by stating that he is far from the plantation and life of a slave in which he grew up. It's for this reason that the audience should forgive him if he doesn't present himself as a sophisticated orator, which is not correct. He was a skilled speaker. Of course, this entire introduction is full of irony because Douglas was indeed a skilled and confident public speaker. Douglas begins the main thesis of his speech by pointing out that the 4th of July is a celebration of independence. He cleverly employs the word your rather than our to illustrate that this independence was not granted to the slave. It doesn't represent a slave. What I ask you to do is to read the speech from line 1 to line 81. Line 81 here. Yes, to this part, to this it, because the speech consists of 166 lines. So I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. This part to line 81, and then we are going to continue with the next part from 81 to 166. And for this part, I sent you via the LMS the guiding questions. The first question begins in line 1, and the last question ends in line 81, as I told you. So here we have 5 questions. Let me explain the questions to you. The first question, from line 1 to line 8, how does Douglas establish his credibility to speak on his topic? The significance of the 4th of July to a slave. So, credibility means what? Credibility means to be trusted by people to speak about a certain topic. So, how does Douglas establish his credibility? I can give you the answer, which is by being a slave for 21 years. This gives credibility to speak about this topic. He was himself a slave. The second question, identify the rhetorical questions in these lines from line 9 to 14. And as I told you, rhetorical questions are questions that don't need answers. Then you are asked to say what purpose do these questions serve at this point in the speech. So why did he use these questions here? In question number 3, from line 31 to line 49, what story does Douglas refer to in these lines? He mentioned a certain story in these lines. What was that story? And why does he allude to that story? Why does he refer to that story? The fourth question from line 60 to line 67, what examples of words with strong connotations are in these lines? What words that have strong meanings are used in these lines? What emotional response are these words meant to evoke in listeners? And what response did he want to evoke in the listeners? The last question from line 72 to line 81 paraphrase Douglas's reasoning and explain his point. So we need to understand the main point of Frederick Douglass in these lines. I hope it's clear for you, and I hope that you send me the answers to your assignment by Wednesday. The deadline will be next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have understood everything well. If you have any question, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much, and see you next session. Goodbye.